Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Aletha here with Ribbons and Zippers. It's fall and it's time to celebrate the beautiful fall colors like the golds and the tans, and this fall actually so many beautiful colors are featured on the runway, and so I'm going to show you how to sew this beautiful empire waist dress that features these beautiful gold leaves for the fall. It is calf length, it goes all the way down, so you can pair it with a beautiful belt like I have, some beautiful jewelry, and some nice boots. You're going to want to take out your fall boots for this one because this is really nice. It pairs very well with boots. So stick with me today and I'll show you just how I created this really awesome, fabulous empire fall dress. Now the first thing that I've done is I've created a working pattern from my block. I showed you how to draft an empire waist pattern block in my previous video, so feel free to watch that video first. Now I've transferred all of the important markings and I've added my seam allowances, and I also traced off my sleeve block because I am going to draft a beautiful puffed sleeve pattern. Now I always create a muslin or a toile first before I cut my fashion fabric. I want to correct any fit issues such as gaping or pulling, and I can also adjust my neckline, my shoulder lengths, and my skirt length and make any style corrections or changes that I want. So I'm going to need my muslin, rotary cutter, and scissors, pins, and pattern weights in order to sew my toile. Now I find that sewing a toile first helps me to make all of the needed adjustments without ruining my fashion fabric. And once I've sewn my toile, I've marked it up, then I transfer all of the markings and measurements onto my pattern and adjust my pattern to my design. Now since my design is a V-neck, I adjusted my pattern, and it's really not a low V, but if you wanted a plunging V, just remember you are going to have to use your contour guide. Now I have also adjusted my back bodice. You know, I don't want to go down too far, so I came down about an inch. For this design, I am going to need a front and back facing. So I'm just going to use my rulers to draw my facing onto my pattern and then use a tracing wheel to trace it onto a new piece of pattern paper. And I'll do the same for my front and my back bodice. So if you notice that my back bodice, I have my darts. My waist dart goes up to my horizontal balance line, and my back dart is here. So I'm going to need to address those darts on my facing. I need to make sure to transfer any markings onto my facing, including those darts, and then I'll just cut them out and transfer my markings and add my seam allowance. Okay, so now I'm going to work on my skirt. I'm going to do a slash and spread method, which is a very simple method. But first I'm going to fold my skirt up to the hip line because this is the length where I want my first tier to fall. So since I want my first tier to be wider than my bodice at the empire waist, I'm going to need to do the slash and spread method. First, I need to draw a reference line straight down the middle of my dart on my skirt front. So at this reference line, I am going to slash and spread. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab some pattern paper and then go ahead and tape my two pieces 2 inches apart. And that's going to give me 2 inches on each side, which is going to be 8 inches all around, because I'm going to repeat the same method on my skirt back. Okay, so next I'm going to measure my first tier and cut my second tier the same length, which is about 13¼ inches for me. Yours may be different. Now, I don't need to slash and spread because I don't need a pattern for this. It's just basically a rectangle. But because I want a gather, I want to add 4 to 6 inches to my skirt front and about 3 to 6 inches to each skirt back panel. The third tier is going to be very easy. It's going to be the exact same as the second tier, but the length is going to be in half. You can either make a wide hem or fold it in half as I did. Okay, and now for the sleeve. Now you can do any type of sleeve that you prefer, but I love a puff sleeve. So let me show you how it's done. First, fold your sleeve pattern in half. Next, you're going to determine the length of your sleeve. And then from the bicep line, that's the line that goes horizontal, you're going to measure down to your desired length and then fold your pattern up to that line. And then draw 2 evenly spaced reference lines vertical. Next, you're going to grab a single piece of pattern paper and then draw a reference line straight down and place your pattern on that reference line. Now, before I move on, I just want to point out that my sleeve length is 7 inches from my bicep line. Yours may be different. Yours could be 2 inches, it could be 3 inches, it's whatever you desire. But I want my sleeve to fall at or below my elbow. Okay, so I have traced my sleeve onto my paper, and now I'm just going to make my cut lines. I'm going to extend them away from my trace so that I'll know where they are, and then I'm going to redraw them. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut out my sleeve pattern, and then I'm going to grab some more pattern paper and begin the next step. I'll start by folding my paper in half, and then I'm going to make some guidelines on my folded paper. I'm going to measure up 2 inches from the bottom edge of my paper and draw a line. Now, before I make my next guideline, I'm going to slash my sleeve pattern from the bottom up to my sleeve cap, but not through. Now, my next guideline is going to be 1 inch from the fold on the first guideline. Make sure I go down to the first guideline. Now I'm going to take the bottom corner of my sleeve and move the tip over to that 1 inch line and tape it down. But I'm going to maneuver the top of my pattern onto the folded edge of the paper and tape it down. So the first spread is 1 inch from the fold, and my next 2 spreads is going to be 2 inches. I'm just going to make sure that my spreads are nice and even and that my pattern stays laying flat, even if I have to use a lot of tape. The next step is to create my curve that will form the bottom of my puffed sleeve. So I'm going to grab my curved ruler and start shaping. I want to shape down to the bottom of my 2 inch guideline, and I want to make sure that I have a nice smooth line. Now I'm going to create my last guideline, and that's going to be at the top of my sleeve. I need to make a 2-inch space, so I am going to draw that line across the top. This is because I need the top of my sleeve pattern to fall within this 2-inch space. Next, I'm going to carefully remove my sleeve pattern from the folded paper and close the bottom back together with tape. And I also want to spread open the top of my sleeve cap. Now I need to place my pattern back onto my folded paper, and I'm going to place the tip of my underarm seam right where I started my bottom curve. As you can see, the top of my sleeve is in the 2-inch space. It's at the top, but that's okay. Yours may be a little lower, but that's okay too, as long as it is not over or under the 2-inch line. Make sure that it's parallel to the fold and just tape it down. Now I just draw in my underarm seam and draw in my sleeve cap. And I also want to true my curves and blend and smooth out my lines. Now I just need to cut out my sleeve and make some markings and notes. It's especially important to mark the notch where the center of the sleeve was. Instead of 1 notch, you're now going to have 2. Now I'm going to move on to the facing. If you are working with lightweight fabric, you can use interfacing to stabilize it, but you need to make sure that you're using lightweight interfacing as well. And you want to make sure that you are interfacing the wrong side of the fabric. After I finished applying the interfacing, I want to head over to my serger and finish only the outer edges of my back facings and my front facing. Okay, so this looks really good. I use my serger to finish my back facings and my front facing, but if you don't have a serger, you can definitely use a zigzag stitch. The next step is to attach my facings at the shoulder with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So this is my front bodice, and as you can see, I've clipped and marked my notches, and I'm going to gather the bottom of my bodice from notch to notch, from one notch to the other. I'm not going to gather the middle section, but I am going to gather again on the other side. So here we have our gathering stitches on both sides, and as you can see, I have used my longest stitch and I did 2 rows of stitches, which helps to evenly distribute the gathering. Now for the back bodice. I first have to sew my waist darts and my shoulder darts. I've marked them so that I can see them. After I sew my darts closed, I'll put my bodice together, right side to right side, and only sew my shoulder seams together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and attach my facing. So here's my front and back facing attached to my bodice. I've understitched it. Understitching is very important. Now I'm going to give it a good press and close up the side seams. The next step is to sew together the first panel of my skirt. It consists of the front skirt that was cut on the fold and 2 back skirt panels. However, I love pockets. Everyone knows I love pockets. So I am going to add pockets to my skirt. And this is a pocket that would be attached to a waistband. So I need to just round it off, just cut off the edge so that it's rounded. And sew my pockets onto the dress. I love pockets, so let's go. After I installed my pockets and I finished my side seam, now I need to create a gathering stitch all the way around from center back to center back. And then I am going to attach my first panel to my bodice. But first, I need to prepare my bodice. I need to gather my bodice at the underbust. So that is my underbust measurement plus ease. So I'm going to pull my gathering stitches so that it measures 7 inches and no more, otherwise I'll exceed my measurements. Then I'll attach my bodice to my skirt, finish the raw edges, and press. Okay, so here we have it. It looks really, really beautiful. I love it. At this point, since I have not yet cut out my second tier, I can measure the hem of my first tier and decide how much wider I want my second tier to be. Okay, so here is my second tier ready to go. The first is on the fold and I have my 2 back panels. And I made sure to add the extra inches to all 3 panels. So this tier is about 10 inches more than the first panel. That's going to give me a really nice subtle gathering effect. Now for the last tier, and this is very simple. I want my third tier to measure exactly the same as the hem of my second tier. So I'm not going to add my extra inches. Instead, I have folded up my third tier to make a wide hem. I've perfectly matched all of my seams and attached it to the bottom of the second tier and finished the raw edges. This works so well. It gives weight to the bottom of the dress, which adds movement, and added bonus, I didn't have to worry about hand stitching a hem. That's awesome. The last step is to attach the sleeve and hem it. So here is my gathering for my puff sleeve, and here are my notches that was my center seam. Because remember, I widened my sleeve head to get the puffed sleeve at the top. I'm going to insert elastic at the bottom of my sleeve, so I made a stitch 1/4 inch from the raw edge. I'm going to go ahead and press it up, and that is going to be my guide. Once it's pressed up, I'm going to edge stitch it and leave an opening. Now for the elastic, I've measured it snugly around my elbow, and I left about 1 inch to close it. Now all I have to do is insert my elastic, and to do that I am going to use either a turner or a bobbin. Bobbins are so cool. I love them. So I am using them to pull thread and elastic through. All you have to do is insert the bobbin through one hole and out the other. Then insert the elastic through the bobbin. But before pulling the bobbin out, make sure to attach the elastic with a safety pin so it won't go pulling out all the way. Once the elastic is through, attach the ends together and then sew the opening closed, and there you have it. And that's all it takes to make this flattering empire waist dress. If this tutorial was helpful, please like and subscribe so that you will not miss the next tutorial. Thanks for watching.